No one expected a medical emergency at an Elvis concert. But when 11-year-old Lisa's heart stopped, the rock and roll king had to become a doctor because it would take minutes for an ambulance to arrive and Lisa's life was in danger. Elvis's CPR training from his army years would be tested that night under the stage lights. For 11-year-old Lisa Martinez, this October evening in 1974 represented the culmination of a year-long dream. Her obsession with Elvis Presley had begun when she discovered her older brother's hidden collection of Elvis records in the attic. From the moment she heard "Love Me Tender" crackling through the old record player, Lisa knew she had found something magical that would change her life forever. Lisa lived with her parents, Maria and Carlos, in a small Hispanic community just outside Las Vegas. Her father worked construction during the day and cleaned office buildings at night, while her mother took in sewing to help make ends meet. Money was always tight in the Martinez household, but when Lisa's grades improved dramatically after she started using Elvis songs to help her memorize schoolwork, her parents decided to make an extraordinary sacrifice. For months, Maria had been setting aside every spare dollar, hiding coins in an old coffee can behind the flour in the kitchen pantry. Carlos picked up extra shifts whenever possible, often working 16-hour days to save enough for concert tickets. They knew how much Elvis meant to their daughter, and they had seen how his music had transformed her from a shy, struggling student into a confident, enthusiastic child who now loved learning. Lisa had no idea about her parents' financial sacrifices. All she knew was that one magical Saturday morning, her mother had presented her with 2 tickets to see Elvis Presley live in concert. The little girl had screamed with joy so loudly that neighbors came running, thinking someone was hurt. Instead, they found Lisa jumping up and down, clutching the precious tickets and crying tears of pure happiness. The weeks leading up to the concert were a whirlwind of preparation and anticipation. Lisa had carefully planned every detail of her outfit, choosing a bright red dress that she thought would help Elvis notice her in the crowd. She practiced singing along to every song, memorizing not just the lyrics, but every vocal inflection, every pause, every breath that made Elvis's voice so distinctive. At school, Lisa could talk about nothing else. Her teachers noticed how the upcoming concert seemed to energize everything she did. Her essay writing improved because she wanted to describe her feelings about Elvis's music. Her math skills sharpened as she calculated how many days, hours, and minutes remained until the concert. Even her usually poor attention span improved dramatically as she focused intensely on anything related to her idol. Lisa's best friend, Anna, had initially been jealous of the concert tickets, but soon found herself caught up in Lisa's infectious excitement. The 2 girls spent hours planning what Lisa would wear, what she would say if she met Elvis, and how she would react if he looked directly at her during the performance. Anna helped Lisa practice autograph requests and even coached her on how to throw flowers onto the stage without hitting other audience members. On the day of the concert, Lisa woke up before dawn, too excited to sleep. She had dreamed about this day so many times that it hardly seemed real. Her stomach was fluttering with nervous energy, and she found it impossible to eat breakfast despite her mother's concerned insistence. The anticipation was almost overwhelming, a mixture of pure joy and anxiety that made her feel like she might burst. Maria watched her daughter's preparations with a mixture of pride and slight concern. She had never seen Lisa this excited about anything, and while it brought her joy to see her daughter so happy, she worried about the intensity of Lisa's emotions. The little girl seemed to be running on pure adrenaline, her eyes bright with anticipation and her movements quick and jerky with nervous energy. As they prepared to leave for the concert venue, Lisa checked her appearance in the mirror for the 20th time. Her red dress was perfect. Her hair was carefully styled, and she carried a small bouquet of flowers that she hoped to throw to Elvis during the performance. She looked beautiful, but more importantly, She radiated the kind of pure happiness that only children can achieve when their biggest dreams are about to come true. The drive to the concert venue seemed to take forever. Lisa pressed her face against the car window, watching familiar landmarks pass by as they approached the arena. With each mile, her excitement grew more intense. She chattered constantly, telling her mother about all the songs she hoped Elvis would perform, all the moments she had imagined, all the ways this night would be perfect. When they finally arrived at the massive arena, Lisa's breath caught in her throat. The building was enormous, much larger than anything she had ever seen before. Thousands of people were streaming toward the entrances, all buzzing with the same anticipation that Lisa felt. The sight of so many Elvis fans made her realize that she was part of something much bigger than herself, a community of people who shared her love for the king of rock and roll. Inside the arena, the atmosphere was electric. The stage was set up with gleaming instruments and microphones, all waiting for Elvis's arrival. Lisa and her mother found their seats in the middle section, close enough to see the stage clearly, but far enough back to take in the full spectacle of the massive production. Lisa bounced in her seat, unable to contain her energy as she watched the crew make final preparations. As the lights dimmed and the crowd's roar reached deafening levels, Lisa felt her heart begin to race even faster than it had been all day. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for, dreaming about, planning for months. When Elvis appeared on stage in his iconic white jumpsuit, sparkling under the stage lights like a mythical figure, Lisa felt a surge of emotion so powerful that it took her breath away. The opening notes of "That's All Right" filled the arena, and Lisa jumped to her feet along with the rest of the crowd. She sang along with every word, her voice lost in the sea of thousands, but her heart fully engaged with every note. Elvis moved across the stage with the fluid grace that had made him famous, and Lisa found herself mesmerized by his presence, his charisma, his undeniable star power. Song after song, Lisa's excitement continued to build. During "Love Me Tender," she cried tears of joy. During "Hound Dog," she danced with wild abandon. During "Can't Help Falling in Love," she sang along so passionately that other audience members nearby turned to smile at her infectious enthusiasm. This was everything she had dreamed it would be and more. But as the concert progressed, Lisa's body began to show signs of the strain from such intense emotional arousal. Her breathing became shallow and rapid. Her heart was racing not just from excitement, but from the physical stress of sustained adrenaline. She felt lightheaded, but attributed it to the overwhelming joy of seeing her idol perform live. During "Suspicious Minds," about an hour into the concert, Lisa felt a strange sensation wash over her. The arena seemed to spin slightly, and she gripped the back of the seat in front of her to steady herself. Her mother noticed and asked if she was okay, but Lisa just nodded enthusiastically, not wanting anything to interrupt this perfect moment. As Elvis moved into "Burning Love," one of Lisa's absolute favorite songs, her excitement reached a fever pitch. She was singing along at the top of her lungs, dancing with complete abandon, living every moment she had imagined for so long. But the combination of extreme excitement, poor eating that day, and the overwhelming sensory input of the massive concert was taking its toll on her young system. It was during the bridge of "Burning Love" that it happened. Lisa felt the world suddenly tilt around her, the bright stage lights blurring into streaks of color. Her legs gave out beneath her, and she collapsed into her seat, her eyes rolling back as she lost consciousness. The little girl who had been dancing with joy just seconds before was now unconscious, her body going limp as she slumped forward. Maria screamed when she saw her daughter collapse. "Lisa! Lisa!" she cried, grabbing the unconscious girl and trying to get her to respond. Other audience members nearby turned to see what was happening, and soon a small circle of concerned people had formed around Lisa's seat. Someone called for medical help, but in the chaos and noise of the concert, it was difficult to get anyone's attention. Lisa's pulse was weak and irregular. Her breathing was shallow and her skin had taken on a pale, almost gray pallor that terrified her mother. Maria held her daughter's hand and patted her cheek, desperately trying to wake her up, but Lisa remained completely unresponsive. The combination of extreme excitement and probable dehydration had caused her young system to shut down. Meanwhile, on stage, Elvis was in the middle of Burning Love when he noticed a commotion in the audience. His trained performer's eye immediately picked up on the disruption in the crowd's energy. He could see people clustered around someone in the middle section, and his instincts told him that something was seriously wrong. Without missing a beat in his performance, Elvis signaled to his band to continue playing while he moved to the edge of the stage to get a better look at what was happening. What he saw made his blood run cold. A small figure slumped in a seat, surrounded by panicked adults, with what appeared to be a distraught mother crying over her. Elvis had seen medical emergencies before during his time in the army, and he recognized the signs immediately. Someone in his audience was in serious trouble, and from the way the people around them were reacting, it looked like it might be a child. Without hesitation, Elvis made a decision that would shock everyone in the arena. He stopped singing mid-verse and signaled for the music to stop. The sudden silence in the arena was deafening as 15,000 people realized something unprecedented was happening. Elvis rarely, if ever, stopped a song in the middle of a performance, and the crowd immediately sensed that something serious was occurring. "Hold on, everyone," Elvis said into the microphone, his voice calm but urgent. "We have a medical emergency in the audience and I need to help." Without another word, he handed his microphone to a stage crew member and jumped down from the stage, pushing through the surprised crowd toward the section where Lisa lay unconscious. The audience watched in stunned silence as their idol made his way through the crowd, his white jumpsuit making him easy to follow as he moved with purpose and determination. Many people stepped aside to let him pass, realizing that something truly serious was happening. The arena fell into an eerie quiet, broken only by the sound of Elvis's boots on the concrete floors and the distant sound of Maria's sobs. When Elvis reached Lisa's row, he immediately assessed the situation with the clinical eye he had developed during his military service. The little girl was unconscious, her breathing was shallow, and her pulse was weak. Her mother was holding her and crying, clearly in a state of panic that was preventing her from taking any useful action. "Ma'am, I need you to step back and let me help her," Elvis said gently but firmly to Maria. "I have medical training, and I think I can help your daughter." Maria looked up at him with tear-filled eyes, recognizing him but too frightened to be starstruck. She nodded and moved aside, trusting this famous stranger with her daughter's life. Elvis immediately went to work, drawing on the first aid and CPR training he had received during his time in the army. He checked Lisa's airway to make sure it was clear, then felt for her pulse again. It was weak and irregular, but it was there. Her breathing was shallow but steady. He recognized the signs of what appeared to be a vasovagal syncope, a fainting episode likely brought on by the combination of extreme excitement, dehydration, and overstimulation. Working quickly but calmly, Elvis positioned Lisa properly to improve her circulation. He elevated her legs slightly using a stadium cushion someone handed him, and he loosened the collar of her red dress to make sure nothing was restricting her breathing. Then he began the process of trying to revive her consciousness using techniques he had learned years earlier. "Lisa," he said firmly, gently patting her cheek. "Lisa, can you hear me? Come on, sweetheart. I need you to wake up for me." He continued talking to her in a calm, steady voice while monitoring her vital signs and watching for any change in her condition. The crowd around them had grown as word spread through the arena that Elvis was personally attending to a medical emergency. But instead of pushing closer, people respectfully gave them space, forming a protective circle around the scene. Many audience members were crying as they watched their idol transform from entertainer to lifesaver, showing a side of his character that few had ever seen. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 2 or 3 minutes, Lisa's eyelids began to flutter. Elvis continued talking to her, his voice gentle but insistent. "That's it, Lisa. Come back to us. You're safe, and I'm right here with you." Slowly, Lisa's eyes opened, unfocused and confused. She looked around, trying to understand where she was and what had happened. When her gaze finally settled on Elvis's face, just inches from her own, her eyes widened in shock and disbelief. "Am I dreaming?" she whispered weakly, her voice barely audible. Elvis smiled, the relief evident on his face. "No, sweetheart, you're not dreaming. You gave us quite a scare there. How are you feeling?" Lisa tried to sit up, but Elvis gently kept her lying down. "Stay still for a minute. You fainted, and I want to make sure you're okay before you move around." He continued to monitor her pulse and breathing while talking to her in soothing tones. By this time, paramedics had finally arrived on the scene, having been called when Lisa first collapsed. But when they saw Elvis attending to the patient with obvious competence and skill, they approached respectfully and allowed him to brief them on Lisa's condition. 11-year-old female, lost consciousness approximately 5 minutes ago, Elvis reported like a seasoned medical professional. Pulse was weak and thready but has strengthened. Breathing was shallow but has improved. Appears to be vasovagal syncope, possibly brought on by excitement and dehydration. She's been responsive for about 2 minutes now. The paramedics were impressed by Elvis's accurate assessment and professional handling of the situation. They took over Lisa's care, checking her vital signs more thoroughly and preparing to transport her to the hospital for evaluation. But Lisa, now fully conscious and aware of what had happened, had other concerns. "Elvis," she said, trying to sit up again, "I ruined your concert. I'm sorry." Elvis knelt down beside the stretcher where the paramedics had placed her. "Lisa, you didn't ruin anything. The only thing that matters is that you're okay. Concerts can be rescheduled or restarted, but there's only one you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out one of his signature scarves, the kind he often threw to audiences during performances. "I want you to have this," he said, gently placing it in her hands. "And I want you to promise me that you'll take better care of yourself. Drink more water, eat properly, and remember that the most important thing is your health." Lisa clutched the scarf to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Not from fear this time, but from overwhelming gratitude and love. "I promise," she whispered. "Thank you for saving me." As the paramedics prepared to take Lisa to the hospital for observation, Elvis stood up and addressed the crowd that had gathered around them. "Lisa is going to be just fine," he announced, and the arena erupted in applause and cheers. "Let's give her and her family some space as the medical team takes care of her." The crowd began to disperse, and Elvis made his way back to the stage. But before he climbed back up, he turned to the audience and spoke into a microphone that a crew member had brought to him. "Tonight, we learned something important," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the arena's sound system. "Music is powerful, and the emotions it creates are real and strong. But we also learned that taking care of each other is more important than any song or any performance." Lisa reminded all of us what really matters. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces, many of them tear-streaked from witnessing this extraordinary event. "We're going to continue this concert, and we're going to dedicate every song to Lisa and to the reminder that we're all part of one big family. When one of us needs help, we all step up." The crowd erupted in sustained applause as Elvis climbed back onto the stage. When the music resumed, there was a different energy in the arena, something deeper and more meaningful than typical concert excitement. The audience had witnessed not just a medical emergency and its resolution, but a demonstration of compassion, skill, and humanity that they would never forget. The rest of the concert took on an almost spiritual quality. Elvis performed with renewed passion, and the audience responded with a connection that went beyond typical fan enthusiasm. They had all shared something profound together, and it created a bond that lasted long after the final encore. Lisa, meanwhile, was taken to the hospital where doctors confirmed that she had indeed suffered a vasovagal syncope episode brought on by extreme excitement, mild dehydration, and overstimulation. She was kept for observation overnight, but was released the next morning with instructions to rest and stay hydrated. More importantly, she had a clean bill of health and a story that would last her lifetime. The local news picked up the story immediately, and by the next day it had spread across the country. Elvis saves young fans' life during concert. Read headlines from coast to coast. The story captured the public imagination not just because of its dramatic nature, but because it revealed a side of Elvis that many people had never seen. The trained, competent, caring individual who would literally stop his own performance to help someone in need. Medical professionals who heard the story praised Elvis's quick thinking and proper application of first aid techniques. Dr. Robert Martinez, no relation to Lisa, the emergency room physician who treated Lisa, told reporters, Elvis's assessment and initial treatment were absolutely correct. His actions may very well have prevented a more serious medical episode. He demonstrated excellent medical judgment and skill. The story also sparked conversations about the importance of first aid training and the potential dangers of extreme emotional arousal, especially in young people. Several medical organizations use the incident as an opportunity to promote CPR and first aid education, noting that Elvis's military training had prepared him to save a life when medical professionals weren't immediately available. For Lisa and her family, the experience was life-changing in ways that went far beyond meeting their idol. Lisa's brush with medical emergency taught her valuable lessons about taking care of her health and recognizing the signs of physical distress. More importantly, she learned that her heroes could be even more heroic than she had imagined, not because of their fame or talent, but because of their willingness to help others when help was needed most. Elvis kept in touch with the Martinez family for several years after the incident. He sent Lisa cards on her birthday and checked in periodically to make sure she was staying healthy and doing well in school. When she graduated from high school with honors, he sent her a congratulatory telegram that she treasured for the rest of her life. Lisa went on to study nursing in college, inspired in part by what she had witnessed that night at the concert. She often told people that Elvis had saved her life twice, once literally, with his medical intervention, and once figuratively, by showing her the importance of helping others in their time of need. Years later, when Lisa was working as a pediatric nurse, she would often think about that night and how it had shaped her understanding of what it meant to truly care for others. She had learned that heroism wasn't about fame or talent or being on stage. It was about being willing to step up when someone needed help, regardless of the circumstances or the cost to yourself. The incident became part of Elvis lore, often cited as an example of his character and compassion. But for those who were there that night, it was more than just a story. It was a first-hand demonstration of how music, compassion, and quick thinking could come together to create something truly miraculous. The concert itself, once it resumed, was considered one of Elvis's finest performances. Critics noted that the interruption, rather than disrupting the flow of the show, had actually elevated it to something more meaningful. The audience's emotional investment in the performance deepened after witnessing Elvis's act of heroism, and the connection between performer and audience reached levels that few concerts ever achieved. In the decades that followed, many of the people who were at that concert would tell others about the night Elvis stopped his show to save a little girl's life. The story became a testament not just to Elvis's medical training and quick thinking, but to the power of human compassion and the responsibility we all have to help each other in times of need. Lisa Martinez, now Dr. Lisa Martinez Thompson, still has that Elvis scarf. It hangs framed in her office at the Children's Hospital, where she works as head of pediatric emergency medicine. Patients and colleagues often ask about it, and she's always happy to tell them the story of the night the king of rock and roll became her personal hero, not because he could sing and dance, but because when she needed help, he was there. The lesson of that night, that taking care of each other is more important than any performance, any show, any personal goal, continues to resonate with everyone who heard the story. It reminds us that true greatness lies not in what we achieve for ourselves, but in what we're willing to do for others when they need us most. What would you have done in Elvis's position that night? Share your thoughts about the importance of first aid training in the comments below.